I'm Dana Han-Klein here with Andrea Riseborough, Valerie Faris, and Jonathan Dayton for Battle of the Sexes.
I would love to know, why make this movie now?
Well, we didn't make it now. It was very different now when we started this movie in 2015. And it was in the air partially because we were about to go into the election, and we knew we were going to have a woman as a candidate. Because there were 3 projects around this story all going at the same time. So we weren't alone in thinking that it was going to be.
We were not alone.
Yeah.
But I would say now more than ever.
Yes.
So, but yeah.
We just didn't anticipate the climate that the movie would be released in, that it would.
I think in a wonderful way it's worked to our advantage in the sense that we're able to have this really large platform because people are now investing in diversity, and not just when I say people have always invested in diversity, but actually people are financially investing in diversity, which is a relief for us all.
Financiers are investing in diversity. Yeah.
Diversity stocks are on the rise today.
Diversity is on the rise.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting just because even making the film 2 years ago, something like wage gaps, right? With or without a female candidate for president is something that we've been talking about, and particularly ironically in Hollywood, like female actresses getting paid so much less than male actresses. Please tell me you and Emma got paid as much as Steve, if not more. I don't even know if you can answer
Emma
that.
had a really good response to that, which was she was asked if she was paid as much as Steve, which was I thought was a confusing question because Emma, was number one. She was in every day. She absolutely gave, as Steve did, but she gave blood, sweat, and tears, on the clock constantly, because she's, in almost every frame of the film. And they asked if she got as much as him, and she said he got as much as me, which I thought was awesome.
Well, no, I just think she should have gotten more than him.
I did send an email like that, about 3 hours ago. About a project that I'm involved in.
Minute for minute screen time, and this
it's
is
an
a
everyday
film about
battle.
her.
Yeah, it's an everyday battle, and no, so little's changed. So very little has changed, but that's why it's so great to have this, platform, and also because Val and John have approached these characters with so much compassion that you see them all through the lens of, you see every character with love. And that's hopefully why people will identify with them.
I think, that was definitely the point, was not to sort of reduce them to caricatures. And, we were saying it's like your grandpa could be a racist, and you still love your grandpa. But, maybe that's all the more reason to actually talk to your grandpa about it. And, and I think what we love about this film is Billie Jean, she confronts Jack Kramer, and they discuss the issues. It's not just a screaming match, or it's not a bunch of rhetoric. It's actually a real discussion.
It was so brave of her. I don't know whether she was feeling like I feel, like I've always felt, but I had to send an email a couple of days ago to get paid equally to be number one in something, and all that goes on weekly. Yeah. But I'm sending the email, and I do it, and I've always done it. But I'm fucking scared that the hand that feeds me is going to just snatch that cookie right back, and I'm going to be looking for the crumbs under the rug. But it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
And she was so courageous, Billie Jean. So courageous.
At the top of her game, she put all that on the line.
It's amazing.
So what do you think that you two admire most about Billie Jean? Just because, you probably spent a great deal of time researching that time in her life and what she did afterwards, obviously.
Well, it goes a little bit to what we're just talking about, which is that she's an American hero, but the path that she took was messy. And it wasn't just like, I'm just going to do this and, it'll all work out fine. It was very important to us to tell this story, even though it took place in 1973. We wanted to tell it from a contemporary perspective. We weren't looking back at something. We were looking forward, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And it's fine when you take a risk and you win, but you don't always win. And we wanted to really deliver this story with that consequence hanging in the balance. So Billie Jean is like all of us. And the more we can connect to what we share in common with her, and the more we can maybe be inspired by her courage, the better things will be.
It's like what Andrea is saying, in your own realm, in the realm that you work in, that's where you can make a difference. Like when you protest about that directly to the person who's hiring you, or, you put what you have at stake, and I think that's what it takes. You can't just sort of sit back and let other people do the work for you. So I think she's a great example of somebody who, had this cachet in her profession, and she used it to make change. And it took a while and it's still, there's parity in tennis, but not all the way down. At the top there's parity, but this will always be relevant, because I think it's going to be a long time really before we have true equality. There's so many, not just for women, but across the board.
It's so recent that people have started watching female soccer matches even on, on television as much. I mean, for a long, long time it wasn't. It's the things you don't even think of growing up. Oh, I see a football player and he has a penis. Sort of that's how a football player looks.
Or a girl might want to be a football player. Like,
right.
Billie Jean actually wanted to be a baseball player first, and her parents said no, like it's not a women's sport, and football wasn't a women's sport. So
turned out neither was tennis until she made it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah.
I think there's also this interesting additional layer of like, okay, well, not only are you a woman in this situation, you're gay, and that's not something that we don't have parity with, we don't have equality with, and for me that was like a doubly frustrating thing, where I was just sitting there like, why should it matter? Why should it matter? Why would you lose sponsors over that? And I feel like that's something we haven't gotten past yet. Like,
not at all.
Why are we still dealing with these issues?
I know.
I think there are so many people who are closeted in our industry, and it is painful and sad and frustrating. It's really frustrating that should bear any significance on whether somebody's competent or has the capacity to feel and emote and do their job
play
and create.
tennis, like why should that impact how you play tennis? But I'm curious as to how you chose to balance sort of that aspect of it, in addition to kind of the various other issues swelling about this. I mean, it's because there's so many things. She's so multi-tiered.
That was really why we wanted to tell this version of the story, because we didn't know that she was having her first relationship with a woman while married, while she was going through this kind of crazy circus and fighting for women's equal pay. So the fact that she kind of allowed herself to pursue those desires and to even feel that's what she wanted was that's what we were moved by, that she was able to say, no, I'm not happy in this marriage, and it's not just because he's an asshole. He's not an asshole. It's just not, I want to be with a woman.
It's not who I am. And that act of courage was as important as anything she does in the movie.
And I think that relationship between personal change and political change is a really important thing to look at. Like, I think people who are repressed tend to go attack the thing in themselves that, they can't handle. So I think personal growth is an important part of this story, as anything.
And Andrea, your character is so pivotal, obviously, to that. How did you feel when you first read the script and realized that you'd be playing this role of kind of the crux of her realization?
I really, it took meeting John and Val to know what the experience would be like, because when I read the script, I felt like there could be so much in their relationship. And when I met John and Val, they talked with such passion about that relationship and about it being really the love being the center of the piece, And I got really excited by what she could be. It was strange with Marilyn, because really none of us had very much information about her. Simon didn't. I didn't. Simon's the writer. I didn't. Obviously, Billie did. But we're dealing with a real person's life, and it's really important to treat treat that with respect and kid gloves, really, and just kindness. And so it was a bit like a flailing around in the dark for all of the pieces that I could possibly find, and then imagining everything else. And strangely, after the fact, Billie had said, it's so weird how like her you were. And I've played a lot of characters who existed, and I had a lot of material, and I honestly don't know how the hell that happened. Because I think I had one still to go on and a wig.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It really is not a lot about her.
Very little. But actually what there was about her was who she must have, is sort of what essence she must have had to fit into this story. And how she must have been the catalyst for change in some way. And Billie Jean, Val said very early on.
She really was. Yeah.
That she changed her perspective of the body from being something that was just completely physical to being something that was sensual.
Pleasurable. And I think we thought of, Larry's always wrapping her knees with ice. And
So sexy.
I mean,
nothing more sensual than that. And then in Marilyn, going, the way they meet is by her running her fingers through her hair, and we thought,
and the scent.
And the scent of the lavender oil, and the way she speaks to her, there was just this whole, almost like it turned on another side of her kind of sensual self, and so that was exciting to us. We sort of did have to invent her and decide really what her role was in this story.
I'm curious as to what the most challenging scene was to film, because you have emotionally challenging scenes, and then you have these logistically crazy, complicated tennis stunts. That what made you pull your hair out on this one?
All of it. I think one of the scariest things about making this movie was that we had Billie Jean very much alive and a part of the project, and it was a really hard time in her life. So it was hard for her to even comment on it or revisit it in a certain way. And I think until Telluride, we were losing sleep over does she like it? Can she embrace it? Can she get behind it? And so there was just that looming over the whole project, and wanting it to be something that she could, fully embrace, and which thankfully she really has now. And
I think the tennis match and the love scene were the two very different challenges, but they both were daunting, and one was more technical. I won't say which. No. No. Yeah. No. But
they suck all the joy out of it.
Yeah. No, but no. The match was the technical one. We talked a lot about just for the love scene, just to not make it about the male gaze, but that this was a love scene between two women, and just finding the truth in that.
I think for me the hardest scene, or the most challenging scene, was the breakup. And actually it didn't end up in the film, which probably was why it was the most challenging scene. But we sort of had,
that was hard.
At one stage we had multiple breakups.
There were two scenes
of Billie and Marilyn, and so that when we were shooting that, I think we were already feeling that in some way, and we were already trying to process it and already trying to kind of make sense of it. Anyway, it's not in the film, but it was a challenging and also just incredibly painful emotionally to shoot, because they had a really beautiful love story, and it was hard.
She had to sacrifice, that at that point she couldn't handle a relationship and the preparation for the match, and the sadness of her having to sort of decide between what she really wanted and what she kind of felt like she had to do.
But ironically and ultimately, her choosing tennis led to emancipation in more ways than one, so equality in pay, and then also this, she's been an LGBTQ icon now for
and
years.
Title IX is such
Title
a huge,
IX,
as an athlete, it's just
incredible.
such an impressive,
and it still exists. And
for now.
It's funny that she...
Yeah, for now. For now.
I know.
No,
Betty DeVos or whatever, and isn't she trying to change?
She's trying to
everything?
weaken it
Yes.
and everything.
And it's funny that to do that, she the route was tennis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily by you know, being with that person who was in front of her right then and just focusing solely on that relationship. It was actually to, you know, fulfill a dream.
Her love of tennis.
Yeah.
And women. You know, I mean, she's still and always has been about fairness and inclusiveness. And I think that's sort of when she entered the world of tennis as a kid, she just couldn't figure out why is everybody white, and you know, she had a brother, and her brother got things that she didn't get because her parents didn't see her as, you know, having the same kinds of goals or opportunity. So I think still to this day it's equality that she really you know, is looking to, you know, she's an advocate for equality.
She's very awake. You know, she's very aware.
At 73, she is still going strong, you know, in every way.
Yeah. And
Except
she
her
also
knees.
awakened, I don't know about you guys, but, well, you were saying that earlier, but she awakened something in me. You know, I've always been, I'm sure lots of guys would say, irritatingly feminist, but there are things that I hadn't even noticed, and now that I'm noticing, it's really driving me mad. Little things, but, you know, whether it's race or gender or whatever. I was in a hotel the other day, and I was watching one of those, you know, those videos that come up on the screen, and they've got all the
features.
This is the beautiful hotel chain
Oh,
that we
yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
And they were all white.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
All of them. Turns out nobody else goes to those hotels.
Non-threatening,
It was just
generic.
so fucking
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
So weird.
If there's one thing you hope people take away from this film, what do you think it would be? There's many things they will take away from it.
I know. I can never answer that question because it would
If
just
there's a thing,
Well,
there's
yeah.
many things.
Yeah, because
one of the
One of the
many.
many.
choose one of the few. Yeah.
Because that's so subjective.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyway, hope
one thing
would be something that
yeah, hopeful.
I feel like there's a lot of hope in it.
We certainly need that right now.
I think, you know, when I love a movie, I feel energized, and that energy, it's a form of inspiration, but I feel empowered, and I think that, you know, and I feel eager to take action on things that I feel strongly about. So there's just that, it's unique to movies for me, and when a movie really works, it can be about any subject, but somehow I'm eager to return to my life and start fighting for things that are meaningful to me. So I want that feeling. I want that classic movie.
That's
feeling.
amazing. I've never heard that articulated, but I know exactly what you mean, and I feel the same.
And movies do it, and especially movies in theater. There's the thing that you dream about as a filmmaker is that people are going to watch it together and leave that experience of being in a theater watching a film and then leaving the theater. That's just it's so unique to, I mean, concerts are great too, but that experience, I remember so many movies and what happened as I left the theater, how I felt as I left the theater. And
Very much like a tennis match, I guess.
yeah, I guess, yeah.
You know, but
Yeah, but just that, you know, that shared experience. That sports, you get that still. But I just hope that also people will want to go see more movies when they see this movie. Just as one of the many things. There are so many things. But
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations on
you.
the film.
thank you.